So, persuasive design, designing for behavioural change. Today, we are going to be doing one massive takeaway, okay? So, don't you worry. This is all stuff that you can use practically in your daily working lives, in your projects tomorrow, next week, okay? This is all very, very applied. There's some theory in there, but not too much. There are no takeaways at the end, so don't wait until the end for this master list of everything. It is literally peppered from front to back with takeaways. But what that means is, do not worry about trying to cram it all in, take photographs of everything. You're going to get these slides. So relax, focus, and enjoy. So today we're going to be learning about persuasive techniques, how you can design to change or influence behavior using such principles. We ain't doing mind control. I'm sorry to say it, if you're here today thinking that we're going to learn how to control people, unfortunately you are mistaken. If you think this is some form of hypnosis, you are definitely mistaken. And unfortunately, as much as I wish we could do this, it ain't remote control. Usually the ways to get people to do things that they don't want to are immoral, unethical, and illegal. My first slide said or illegal, and then I suddenly realized, no, they're all... So, the legendary Harry Brunel. I wonder is Harry in the room today? Harry Brunel has been doing this for at least 10 years now. He's been keeping a repository and effectively shaming all the really dark patterns, all the really bad things. If you want to get somebody to do something the naughty way, when I say the unintended way, that's the way to do it. That's not how to do it, that's how not to do it. So those are my caveats kind of out the way quite quickly. And at this point, I'm expecting kind of the auditorium to empty out and for me to be thinking, wait a minute, where did everybody go? But I'm really glad you're all still here. So this is the setup for what we're going to do today. I need to spend 5 minutes covering what I would consider classic persuasion techniques, and that's Cialdini. But you didn't come here today to learn about scarcity. And I'm pretty sure you would all work on that if we talked about that. So we're going to cover that briefly. Then we're going to get into what I consider more modern persuasion principles or techniques. These are things that I use in my daily working life as a practitioner. I'm a working user researcher. So I spend my day, like you guys, exactly the same as you guys, in and out of stand-ups and sitting in front of Azure in my lab doing the work. Finally, there's no point me giving you these principles if I don't give you a framework or a process from which to use these. So what I'm going to give you is an entire toolkit of stuff that you can use tomorrow. As you hear me say, most conferences, anytime I talk, there is no playbook. My mentees, they always want me to give them this magic playbook of, give me the special sauce, it just doesn't exist, guys. What does exist are principles and methods which you can apply to your projects to work out how they work with your audiences on your brands in your contexts. That is critically important. If you think this is just one size fits all, I've got a principle, it'll just affect everybody, yes, you can get some results with that, I'm not going to lie, it's going to be weak, not as strong as you'd like. If you really want to change the world, apply this stuff. So I'm going to give you principles, methods, and a process, and because it's me, I'm going to critically review some absolutely shocking rubbish that's out there. I like to think of persuasion. This is not from a textbook or from anybody. This is just the way that I look at things. I see persuasion very much as principles, methods, and a process. So an example of that, let's take social proof is your principle. You might operationalize that or have a method for making social proof real. So using testimonials or reviews or any other methods for social proofing. And then you'll have a process, an iterative hypothesis testing process, which I'm sure you already have, to make sure to test, to iterate, and to refine. So let's start talking with some principles, and we're going to start with Cialdini. Cialdini's very, very famous book, Influence, the Psychology of Persuasion, is one that you probably want to read. I personally think that Cialdini is somewhat overplayed in many respects, and I'll give you some examples of that in a moment. I would be completely remiss talking about persuasion if I didn't cover Cialdini today, so we're going to do it really briefly. I'm not going to cover all of these, I'm just going to cover a couple. So I said we weren't going to talk about scarcity, so let's talk about scarcity. This is how not to do scarcity. This is a motorcycle website. They sell accessories. There's a key tag there. I hope you can see where I've highlighted in red, it shows you, hurry, only 9 left in stock. What you can't see is I've left the timestamp down here, which is 6:24 p.m. Whilst I'm looking at this beautiful tag, it goes down to, hurry, only 8 left in stock. And then it goes down to 7, and then it goes down to 6, and then it goes down to 5, and then it goes down to 4, and then it stops at 4. Now, what does that mean? Is there suddenly a rush on this particular item at the time that I'm looking at it, and then suddenly it stopped? Possibly. It may not. What's more than likely it happens, that's just an animation. Okay? It's not related to stock levels whatsoever. It's just there, something to add some dynamism to the page and to give you a sense of scarcity and urgency. And to, of course, trigger that FOMO, that feeling of missing out. There's only 4 left in stock. Another one, as a father of a Lego-obsessed 6-year-old, I spend my life with Legos, and there's a few Lego examples, I apologize. This came to me. See if I qualify for a Lego subscription club. Really? Okay. Do I have what it takes to be a Booster Bricks Club member? And there's only 100 applications per day. Are you telling me that they're going to say no to the 101st? Sorry, sir, I don't want your money. We don't want any more customers. We're jam-packed. No. So a little suspicion there. Then we go through this qualification process, which is basically some stupidly obvious open questions. Steppy on Lego. What's Lego? Why am I even going to be on this website if I don't know what Lego is? Again, talking about user needs and parental needs. Screen time, massive problem. My child spends his whole life on YouTube, much to Rob's delight. It's a fantastic platform. He learns an awful lot, but he spends too much time. Do you know any 6-year-olds that spend a healthy amount of time doing screen time? Right, so they're completely loaded, ridiculous questions. And then they take an email address and my name. Really? Okay, so I'm really going to put in a valid email address for you to spam, so therefore you're harvesting a whole bunch of garbage. Anyway, the point is, see my results. We get this page. Excellent fit. Oh, thank you very much for your loaded questions. Nice job, Kimo Sabi. Really borderline racist. And you took my name. So you know who I am. You could personalize that. And only 28 memberships remain today. I actually would be willing to bet my house that none of that is seen. And that there's a form of banner blindness and people coming straight to the free messaging and the FAB messaging beneath. Authenticity is obviously critically important if you want to trigger that FOMO sense through design. If you lie, people are going to become jaded. People are aware of it. The younger generations are well aware of this stuff. Okay, this is a £21,000 bottle of single malt whiskey. There is only one left. You can be sure there's only one left because that's a bloody rare bottle of whiskey. What I found interesting about this was it says free delivery. Do you really think if you're going to spend £21,000, you're going to trust it to fucking Yodel? Sorry. So the point is I'm probably going to get like the Imperial Guard to bring it personally on a... Yeah, it's in stock. Other people are looking at it, free blah, blah, and I can get it tomorrow. These are all good charms which are all helping influence behavior, saying it's available, you can have it, and if you can have it, if you order within like 2 hours, you can have it tomorrow and stare at this bottle you're never going to drink. Then Legos. Again, back here we've got 8 available, 68 sold. Again, completely authentic or apparently authentic stock levels. And finally here, this is a barbecue accessory. 41 of these have already been sold. Okay, we can understand what they're trying to do here. It's a little underplayed, but it's definitely a little bit of gentle little persuasion. However, that's 41 out of a stock of 2 million. 41,000 been sold in the past 10 years, in the past 24 hours. Maybe give it a bit of context if you can, just to give it a little bit of a nudge. So that was scarcity. Reciprocity is another great one. For those of you who work in charity, public sector, where you're giving to get, reciprocity is a fabulous principle. And this was a really, really good example of reciprocity on the British Heart Foundation site, where top left they gave a free poster, and at the bottom it says, with your support we'll keep funding. So you've given me a free poster, and you're very appropriately and very classily, very lightly asking for some money. It's not forced, it's just trying to trigger that reciprocity. Social proofs, authority, liking, consistency. Read up on this stuff, it's all out there. An example of authority was just now was when Luke stands on the stage and gets you all to throw snowballs at each other, or stamp your feet on the floor and clap your hands. It happens. I'm going to keep moving because I just do not have the time, unfortunately, to slow down. We have 16 minutes left. Those Cialdini principles are fairly tired and worn out. That doesn't mean to say that you can't use them. Just be aware that we have a skeptical audience and growing more skeptical because certain digital marketers are wildly abusing these and just laying it on way too thickly. So they're tired and worn out, or they're just way too overdone, way too much, not subtle at all. Users are like, really? Don't be that person. So what I want to do now is move forward. Our world is changing so radically. Perloff has said that we are receiving more and more persuasive messages every single second of every single day. There's just a higher volume of people trying to convince you of stuff. Communication in this digital world is at light speed. It's way, way faster. The personalization, the adaptation to your behavior is rapid. Persuasion is humongous business. It's billions and billions and billions of pounds. And modern persuasion is really subtle. Subtle is a very key word that you're going to keep hearing me saying. Light is better. And persuasion is much more complex. It's much more multifactorial. There is so much going on in the persuasive world today. So once you take all of that, we really need to start moving forward and start thinking, how can we move forward from Cialdini? How can we leverage other psychological principles to get the persuasion that we need? One of the biggest principles that I use every single day of my working life is herd behavior. I cannot understate the power of herd behavior to you as practitioners, to you, your customers, to the management, to everybody. Herd behavior is an extraordinarily powerful phenomenon. We are all animals. Whether you like it or not, we have a whole bunch of ancient DNA rattling around in here that still has our animal ancestry, behavioral roots kind of in it. We act like herding animals in so many situations. Once you know that, you are able to design to it. The basic principle of herd behavior is that your behavior is affected by the behavior of others. Sounds screamingly obvious, but it's amazing what happens when you see how people behave in groups and herds. What that also means is that there's a tendency towards group and social norms. So if you as a researcher can understand what those norms are, you can design to them, you can meet user needs, you can help the group by acquiescing to that norm. The sorts of questions that are asked in herd behavior are, if they're doing it, shouldn't I be doing it? Or if they're not doing it, maybe I shouldn't be doing this, or I should stop doing it. These are really, really powerful behaviors. So I want you to think about how you can show users what other users are doing. Okay? So for example, I love e-commerce, so I spend a lot of time doing it. Popular products, busy booking periods, popular options, so up and cross-sells, stock levels, views of an item, ... That can go on as long as you want, be as creative as you want. Some of the, I'm going to give you some examples in a moment. Those of you who are working local and central government, there are lots of public sector examples where you can apply these things too. So success metrics. So X amount of number of people applied for a passport, got their adult renewal, their passport renewed and back in their hands within 4 days. HMRC didn't pay fees for late submissions. Time saved might be in terms of MOJ getting a judicial review. might be people acquired in terms of the Department of Education. There's lots and lots you can do here in terms of surfacing what other people are doing to affect the behavior of others. Oops, sorry. Right. So this here is Kickstarter. Some examples. 100% funded in 8 hours. Wow, seems pretty popular, right? I also wonder, well, why are you asking for money if you're already funded? Again, a bit of FOMO going on here. Limited 284 out of 500, and there were 206 backers. So the herd, other people, are buying these things or choosing to support this project. This here is Littlewoods, a company I'm starting with on Monday. 5 people have looked at this pair of brown shoes in the last couple of hours, and the last pair was purchased yesterday at 10 to 8 in the evening. So that actually came up live whilst you're looking at it. And these are common mechanisms that you've seen across many of these. Let me give you a quick case study. I was at the National Lottery a couple of years ago working for Camelot. And one of the marketing team asked me to wireframe up a mail shot that went out. And it was around GDPR time, just before GDPR time. This is not the exact wording, so please forgive me, but it's words to this effect. We'd like to keep you up to date with lottery wins and other lottery-related news, SMS, email. Now, the individual involved said to me, we have to collect SMS. And I said to you, really? That's kind of like asking somebody's inside leg measurement. It's a bit personal. People really don't want to give it away, and they definitely don't want to get hammered. They don't want to get spammed on it. It's a bit of a personal channel that you don't want to ask for first. They said, no, we definitely want to have it. So I said, okay, that's what we're going to do. So in my world, in our world, that's a bit of a hospital pass. You've given me a really tough challenge, and I'm worried that it's not going to work out well. And as a practitioner like you guys, I want to do good work. I want to be successful. I want to get good folio fodder. I was worried. So I thought, great, I've got to try and convince people to sign up for SMS or email. And it's not like in pre-GDPR where you could just pre-check people with a dark pattern. So we did this, or I did this. This wasn't that exact number, but there was a number from the mailing list of the number of people. So 30-odd thousand of our regular players are signed up to find out if they've won the jackpot. Do you know what happened? Because this blew my mind, and this blew their minds. We had a massive, I think it was more like 80%, but I didn't want to lie to you today, so I said 60 and just underplayed it. We had a humongous effect, a significant, huge, eye-opening effect. There was a massive sign-up. So if I just go back to that, can you see what's happening? You're saying, I don't want to know about your spam. I don't want your marketing stuff. I definitely don't want it. Oh, wait a minute. Everybody else is, and I don't want to miss out on that jackpot because working sucks. So 60% signed up and was tremendously successful. Within herd behavior, you have something called social comparison. And there was this lovely study done by Meyer and Schaefer last year, around July. Basically, in a group of mostly college-educated women, social comparison on Instagram led to short-lasting and harmless envy that was associated with inspiration and improved mood. So there's a little sting at the beginning whilst you're looking at the herd, going, "Ooh, I like your dress. Ooh, I think the dog's lovely." But actually, once that initial sting is passed, it becomes very much inspirational and a positive thing. So surfacing these things, consider if you're in fashion or that sort of very visual mode business, that surfacing the herd through Instagram and other such things is probably a good idea or worth investigating. Something that's really close to my heart, something I've spoken before and I will probably speak again about, is similarity attraction. Similarity attraction is, again, another massive, powerful principle. We tend to like people who are like ourselves. And if you can trigger that similarity attraction, you're going to do really well. One method you might want to try is mirroring the user. Either aesthetically, make it look and feel kind of similar, meet their needs, so their needs are the same as mine, or it might be personality. That's my kind of guy. If you haven't read The Media Equation, go buy it today, read it tomorrow. It is a mandatory text, in my humble opinion. This is a game changer of a book. Reeves and Nass did a series of studies in the 90s and 2000s, or at Stanford University, into the nature of how people treat computers. And to cut a very long story short, this series of experiments are all summarized in this book. It's really easy to read. It's not academic speak. It's brilliant. Read it. You can get the source journal papers if you want to. All the references are in the back. People treat computers like humans. Let's just accept that for the moment. So if we know that we tend to like people who are like ourselves, and we treat computers like humans, the logical step here is that we tend to like computers who are like ourselves. I know this works because it works. We've operationalized it before. You might want to update that into a modern world to say we tend to like digital experiences that are like ourselves, because using words like computers makes me seem really old. We tend to like these digital experiences who are like ourselves. This here is Hilton Hotels. On the left-hand side, you have a set of images and copy which is specifically being constructed or tested to be highly extrovert, to express extroversion. So that is effectively an extrovert personality type on the left. On the right here, we have agreeableness. And again, that's meant to be much more, that's what Hilton Hotels have determined it represents an agreeable personality. Now, this is all the subject of my PhD thesis. It works. It's complicated stuff, but if you can start matching the users to your system, or at least have the apparent personality, you can affect behavior. Oh, good. Okay, sorry. Cognitive dissonance, Festinger, 57. You all know cognitive dissonance or cognitive disequilibrium. Cognitive dissonance is where you have this internal questioning, and you need to reduce this to a bare minimum through your funnels, through your checkouts, through your journeys. Cognitive dissonance means that you have this internal conflict, this doubt, or conflicting beliefs. The classic example of cognitive dissonance is smoking. That's the one they use in every single textbook everywhere in the world. I know it's bad for me, but I'm doing it anyway. The amount of coping mechanisms and rationalization that goes on to be able to handle that war of the two sides. You're going to hear from Lisa Ortega later on this afternoon. She talked about this in quite a lot of detail last year at UX Live. This is Kahneman, System 1 versus System 2. And just in case she's covering it this afternoon, I won't go into too much detail. System 1, very much instinctive. System 2, considered. Once you get conflict between these two systems, you end up with cognitive dissonance or cognitive disequilibrium. What you need to do is review your key user journeys, those golden journeys, individually, as a team, with users. You have to identify those conflicting elements and messaging, because these things come up all the time, and so many times you won't be able to spot it. You'll need your users to make you aware of it. Check your service design. And this is a really obvious one, and it doesn't happen anywhere near enough. You have to check your entire journey and check that it is meeting with expectations and marketing materials and everything else. So, for example, fulfillment. If you're not able to fulfill quickly and you're making all these massive, big, bold claims, believe me, the cognitive dissonance is huge. I want to buy this thing, but I can't because it's crap. I'm not going to receive it soon. Or they use Yodel. So be really careful here. Marketing directors love putting this kind of stuff in the way, roadblocks. They love saying, like, look, they're just about to hit buy, but don't forget we've got to get their email address and their inside leg measurement and who they dated last year and what university they went to. These things are huge detractors. They cause dissonance. They make you wonder, are these guys serious about this thing that I'm doing? Okay, store the insights. You have to store them. You have to store them, and you need to store them in personas. I've got an entire deck I can share with you on that. The reason why is otherwise, once you've moved on to your next gig, your next job, somebody is going to come along and reintroduce those problems. And that's insane. That can never happen. The persona is the method of keeping knowledge transferred between generations of design teams. If you don't leave that insight behind, they're starting from a blank slate and will make the same mistakes. Don't let this happen. Attractiveness. I probably shouldn't have put this one in this, but it made me laugh. So obviously attractiveness is is an influencer. People associated attractive scientists with more interesting but lower quality work than less attractive scientists with higher quality work. People also perceived older scientists' work as more interesting. This is why grey beards are great. What I'm really saying is whoever's putting that message out there, how they look and how they are perceived is going to absolutely moderate how that message is received. Right? Test to it. Find out what works for your audiences. Speaking to everybody in one voice is not going to work either. You're going to need to segment and personalize. Divide and conquer. Popular brands. When online shopping, people with a limited time looked at a greater number of products from popular brands and spent more time looking at them than items from less popular brands. So when you're time pressured, you're looking for popular brands because they're safe. So what does that mean for you? Surface them. Surface the popular brands, not necessarily the popular products, because the brand is what has value to the consumer, not you. And finally, 1 minute and 10 seconds. Persuasive design process, because I can't give you these principles and you just run out there and apply them. It isn't a case of just applying them once and they fit. You're going to need to work at this a little bit. And so I've put this together. It's a process. And if we're talking about behavioral change, we can talk about this for hours and days. I'm literally talking about persuasion and influence today. So I put this together as kind of an influence cycle. You might want to look at this as agile, and you might want to look at this as science. Box 1, we start with principles, generally. So take one of the principles, herd behavior, acquiescence, whatever that is. Create a hypothesis. Okay? I think that if we show stock levels to our customers, that maybe it increases fear of missing out and people buy more. Design it. Put together a wireframe, a full hi-fi thing, whatever you want to do, or modify something that's already in existence. Research and test in the lab, live, MVT, the whole thing. Get your insights. Failures are winning. Failures are learning. That's good. It doesn't mean to say that you got it wrong. There just was nothing to see or nothing to see with that sample. Try again. Store your insights in your personae. Critically important for all the reasons I've said before. Again, the next two, 6 and 7, are almost as important as the entire wheel. If you want to affect transformational change, behavioral change, user centricity in your organizations, on your projects, you have to share this stuff. You have to get used to being on stage. You have to get used to doing show and tells. You have to get used to demos. Okay? We have to be performers, unfortunately. This is our role these days. You have to sell. We have to convince people because they're all mostly doing it wrong. So brief the rest of your team, your agile pod, your designers, your everybody else. Show and tell, demos, share, implement and review. Then come back. Either refine your hypothesis so you jump back in at number 2 and refine it. So we think that showing stock levels for stuff that was only that is only below 10 you see where I'm going. Or go back to first principles and choose another principle. So cognitive dissonance, and we can go through the funnel and pull all of those out. You keep going around this. You'll be building personae of absolute gold dust, absolute nuggets of insights that you and your team can make amazing, high-performing experiences. Finally, my top tips. Do not overdo it. Don't be like Booster Bricks. Don't be like that Moto Loot guys. Don't overdo it. People are skeptical. Don't get too confident too quickly. These are all mistakes that I've made, so learn from them. If you turn it up too quickly, or if you turn it up at all, it can go bad. It can go wrong really quickly. Little bits, gently, subtly. Change one thing at one time. You've got no idea how many heads of digital I've seen flapping around, shouting, roll back, roll back. Don't do that. It's horrible to watch. It's a car crash. Change one thing at one time so that you can attribute change. Be patient and try new things. And I say patient because there's no point sitting there on the web analyst's shoulders going, have we got significance yet? Have we got significance yet? They are going to wind them up incredibly. It takes time. especially if you want to do it on a page which does not have a lot of traffic. It's going to take you a while to get that significance, and they may well have a number of other tests running. Subtle. I've said it before, I'm going to say it again. Subtle can mean massive returns. It doesn't mean you have to go in like a bull in a china shop to get amazing work done. And record all of your insight in your personae. If you haven't got a deck of personas, do it now. Start one. I've got a whole nother talk on personae which I can give to you and share with you. You need to be creating a deck. It needs to be based on insight, no more BS, no more invented stuff. And those personae are then to be handed off with your leaving notes to the next person who's going to take your job, your role, etc. And finally, share internally with your team, in stairwells, in a digital lab. Make sure you propagate this stuff throughout your business, and most importantly, with me and us, because we want to know your successes, what worked, what didn't work. I've been talking for a few years now on stuff. All of these slide decks that I've put together all fit together. They are all part of one big picture, apart from the top one, which was a rant and a moan and an observation. That was about the state of UX and watching UX going bye-bye. We lost that fight. The science of UX was all about the principles of research. Persona development was all about creating these containers for all of this insight. And both personalization and persuasion are all principles and methods that you can use that you then populate the personas with. You can get all of these decks from me later or from Luke and the guys at Tech Circus. Finally, there is a group called UX Psychology, which has gone quite quiet recently, but a guy called David DeCipio in Australia is now running it. Please do join the Facebook group. There's a YouTube channel, and this is it. I'm on the Noisy Guy on LinkedIn. I tend to be here, not here. Thank you very much for your time, everybody.